Okay, so what if the next giant leap in AI has nothing to do with building a bigger brain, but everything to do with giving it a better memory? We're going to dive into this really cool new research paper that suggests a way to completely change how AI thinks. And the secret? It's giving AI a file system for its mind. So, let me ask you this. What do you think is the biggest challenge for generative AI right now? I mean, is it really just a race to build the biggest, most massive model imaginable? Or is there something more fundamental that we're all kind of missing?
Well, if you're thinking bigger models, you might be surprised. According to this paper, that's not it. The real cutting edge has shifted. The actual challenge, the new bottleneck, it's somewhere else entirely.
All right, so here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll look at AI's new bottleneck. Then we'll get into what I'm calling the chaos of context. After that, we'll see how an old idea is giving AI a new trick. We'll walk through the context pipeline to see how it works. And finally, we'll talk about our new job, becoming AI curators.
Okay, let's jump right into part one, AI's new bottleneck. For the past few years, the whole game has been about one thing, scale. Bigger, bigger, bigger. But we're kind of hitting a wall, a point of diminishing returns. The conversation is changing. It's not just about the size of the model anymore. It's about how we manage all the information that's constantly flowing into these things. And that brings us to this really key concept from the paper, context engineering. Basically, it's all about how we capture, structure, and control all the stuff an AI uses to think. Its knowledge, its memory, the tools it can use. Nailing this is the absolute key to building AI that we can actually trust.
Which, of course, leads us straight to the problem we're facing today, the chaos of context. And honestly, the best way to think about it is like a super messy desk. Just imagine papers, books, sticky notes, tools, all just thrown everywhere with absolutely no rhyme or reason. That's kind of how AI handles information right now. And context is a way bigger deal than you might think. We're not just talking about the documents you feed it, that whole RAG process, retrieval augmented generation. No, it's also the AI's own memory, the software tools it can plug into, even the prompts and feedback we give it. It's trying to juggle all of these different things, all at the same time. And here's the problem. All these separate streams of info create what the paper calls transient artifacts. Just think of them as little sticky notes that the AI uses for a task and then immediately crumples up and throws away. They're temporary, they're disconnected, and you can't trace them back. And that is a huge reason why we see things like hallucinations, or why AI gives us inconsistent answers. It literally has no paper trail for its own thinking process. So this really lays out the massive shift we need to make. Right now, things are fragmented, temporary, and totally untraceable. Where we need to go is a system that is persistent, governed, and verifiable. That is the fundamental leap this research is all about. So, how do we actually do that? How do we make that jump? Well, funny enough, the solution comes from a pretty unexpected place. We're talking about a piece of computer science wisdom that's about 50 years old. So the researchers behind this paper asked a really simple but really powerful question. What if we treated all the different kinds of AI inputs? Things like its memory, the data we feed it, the software tools it uses. What if we treated them all exactly the same way? And this is the answer. It comes from the core philosophy of the Unix operating system, an idea that has shaped computing for decades. Everything is a file. It's this incredibly powerful concept that says any source of information, no matter what it is, can be treated as a simple, manageable file. And that is the key to finally taming the chaos of AI context. Okay, so that brings us to the nuts and bolts. How does this AI file system actually work in practice? Well, let's walk through what the paper calls the context pipeline. Right, so the big takeaway here is that once you start treating everything like a file, you can suddenly build this really structured step-by-step process, a pipeline, for managing all that context. And what that does is it makes the AI's entire reasoning process something we can actually check, something we can verify from beginning to end. And this pipeline has three main steps. First up, you've got the context constructor. Think of this like a librarian who goes and pulls all the right files, all the pieces of context that are needed for a specific job. Then the context loader takes all that information, packages it up neatly, and hands it over to the AI, making sure it doesn't overload the model's token limit. And last, the context evaluator acts like a fact checker, validating everything to make sure it's accurate and traceable. It's basically a built-in system of checks and balances for what the AI knows. And when you put it all together, you get a system with some pretty amazing features. For one, it's persistent, so the context doesn't just get thrown away anymore. It handles all kinds of information the exact same way. It uses standardized metadata, which is huge because it means you can track where every single piece of information came from. And, of course, it has access controls built right in for security.
All right, so for our final section, and this is maybe the most important part of all, what does all this mean for us? Because this new way of thinking fundamentally changes our relationship with AI. It gives us a whole new role. We become AI curators.
See, when an AI has a memory that's structured and that we can actually verify, it stops being this black box tool that we just kind of shout prompts at. Instead, it becomes a real, active collaborator, something we can actually work with, something we can begin to trust, because we can see and we can manage the exact knowledge it's using to think.
And this really spells out what our jobs are going to look like in this new world. We become curators, choosing and managing the knowledge files the AI gets to see. We're also verifiers, making sure that all that context is accurate and accountable. And ultimately, we become co-reasoners, true partners, working alongside AI to tackle really complex problems.
At the end of the day, this whole thing is about building a foundation for AI that's not just more powerful, but that's also accountable. It's about creating a system that's designed from the ground up for transparent, human-centered teamwork. Yeah, and this chart just nails the whole idea. Right now, we spend so much energy on prompt engineering, right? Just trying to trick the black box into giving us the right answer. With this new system, all that effort shifts. Instead of focusing on the output, we focus on curating and verifying the AI's input. We're not just trying to ask better questions, we're trying to build it a better library. And that leaves us with one last big question to think about. If AI has a perfect, verifiable memory, a permanent library of knowledge, then who gets to be its librarian? Who decides what information goes on the shelves and what gets left out? That right there is the new frontier.